Have you ever heard someone say, "I'm about to flip some tables"? Maybe you've even said it yourself. We often use that phrase when we're frustrated, overwhelmed, or ready to make a change. But somewhere along the way, Jesus turning over the tables in the temple has almost become this symbol for anger, as if Jesus was simply having a moment and lost his temper. But that's not what was happening. Jesus wasn't having a bad day. He wasn't reacting out of frustration or wounded pride. His anger was righteous, purposeful, and deeply rooted in love. And when we understand why he turned those tables over, we discover something powerful about the heart of God and something important about the way he lovingly works in our own lives. Welcome to the Connect podcast. I'm Jennifer Spivey, founder of the Connect Mentoring Network, and we exist to encourage and equip women in ministry leadership through biblical teaching, mentoring, and practical resources. My heart is to help women who are serving God and serving others and give them encouragement, support, and the tools they need to lead from a place of health and spiritual depth. So today we're going to talk about a misunderstood moment in Scripture when Jesus turned over the tables in the temple. It's in Mark chapter 11. It says, on reaching Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple courts and began driving out those who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves. So when we read that, it's really easy to focus on what Jesus did. He overturned tables. He drove people out. He confronted what was happening. And yes, he was angry. But do we know what was happening? The question we need to ask here is why? What was Jesus really angry about? Because he wasn't angry that people were working. He wasn't angry that people were selling animals for sacrifices. Jesus isn't opposed to business. He was angry because something had become a barrier between people and the presence of God. The temple was meant to be a place where people encountered God's mercy. It was meant to be a place of prayer, forgiveness, healing, worship. It was meant to be a place where people drew near to God. But instead, something had gotten in the way. The very place that was designed to help people encounter God had become filled with distractions, and Jesus loved people too much to leave those distractions in place. And so I think that's what we often miss when we think about God's correction in our own lives. We assume that if God confronts us that it means he's disappointed in us, or we think that his conviction means rejection. We wrongly think that his correction means condemnation, but that's not God's heart. God hates what sin does because he loves the people affected by it. He hates the destruction. He hates the bondage. He hates the pain. He hates the things that keep us from experiencing the freedom and abundant life that he created for us to have in Jesus. A loving father does not ignore the things that harm his children. He lovingly removes those barriers. He confronts them. He restores us. If this conversation is encouraging you today, I'd love for you to help me continue sharing these messages. Please take just a moment to like this episode, subscribe to the podcast, to this YouTube channel, and share it with someone who might need this reminder also that God's correction is always connected to his love. When we share biblical encouragement with others, we just never know how God could use a simple conversation to bring about hope and healing. So let's get back to the temple. The people in the temple, what they had done was created a substitute. They were offering something temporary in the place of something eternal. They were focused on what they could purchase instead of what they could receive from God freely. And if we're honest, we still do the same thing today. It's not always because we're trying to rebel against God. Sometimes we're tired. Sometimes we're overwhelmed. Go back to last week's podcast on the rule of life. Sometimes it's because we're hurting and we reach for things that could temporarily give us comfort. How about the endless scroll of social media, the need for approval, the pursuit of perfection, busyness, control, overfunctioning, avoidance, entertainment, these things that might help us forget for a moment. And many of these things are not wrong by themselves, really. But anything can become a substitute when we turn to that instead of turning to God. Anything can become a roadblock when it keeps us to receiving what only he can provide. That's why I love this picture of Jesus clearing the temple. He wasn't destroying something good. He was restoring something holy. He wasn't pushing people away. He was removing the barriers that kept people from coming near. And that same Jesus is still working in our lives today. He still lovingly reveals the things that distract us the most. He still is clearing away the things that keep us from experiencing His presence. And He still invites us back into deeper relationship with Him. If you're serving in ministry leadership and you're looking for biblical encouragement, practical resources, and a community who understands the joys and challenges of ministry, I would love to invite you to become a part of Connect Mentoring Network. Inside this community, you'll find mentoring opportunities, a growing library of practical biblical resources, e-courses, encouragement from other women in ministry, and tools designed to help you grow spiritually while leading faithfully. You don't have to walk through ministry alone. And you can learn more about Connect Mentoring Network and find those resources by visiting www.connectmentoringnetwork.org. I want to leave you today with this question. What might Jesus be lovingly clearing away in your life so you can experience more of His presence? The God who turns over tables is the same God who gave His life for us. His heart has always been love. Thanks again for joining me on the Connect podcast today, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.